High intelligence does not protect you from stupidity. In fact, smart people often make the most expensive mistakes. Why? Because your brain is not designed for truth, it is designed for survival. It ignores facts, invents patterns, and clings to comfortable lies. These are called cognitive biases. They are the invisible glitches in your operating system that cost you money and time. Today, we are going to debug your brain. The glitch, the brain's shortcut system. Why your brain prefers fast, lazy answers over slow, correct ones. Your brain runs on fast, lazy answers most of the time. It leans on shortcuts because speed saves energy and shields us from information overload. This is the brain's shortcut system in action, a web of mental glitches that spit out impressions before any careful thinking has a chance. When a decision lands, its first draft is a quick guess, not a verdict. We rely on heuristics, tiny mental shortcuts that feel like wisdom in a hurry. They keep life moving, but they can also steer us into costly mistakes. Consider the moment you're at the store and a gadget catches your eye. The brain whispers quick judgments. If everyone seems to want it, I should want it too. Availability bias makes memorable examples seem more probable, so a flashy ad or a friend's rave review can loom larger than the actual need. Social proof nudges you with a chorus of everyone's buying this, so your own rational critique gets crowded out by a louder, faster voice. Anchoring shows up as a price or a shiny badge that makes other options look dull by comparison, even if there's a better fit somewhere else. And yes, fake news rides the same shortcut. A crisp headline, a familiar face, a story that confirms what you already suspect feels instantly convincing. The brain loves the easy answer, and the easy answer often sounds like truth. Inside, a set of mechanisms keeps the shortcuts humming. Mental ease is a real thing. The brain equates fluency with accuracy, so readable text and clean design become stand-ins for reliability. Invisible anchors, like the first number you hear or the initial impression you form, tug later judgments toward that starting point. Emotions ride shotgun too. A quick, gut-level reaction colors risk and value, sometimes more than a calm, careful audit would. We also rely on the comfort of familiarity. The known path feels safer than the uncertain road, even if the familiar is suboptimal. That dynamic can lock you into a bad job, a half-serious plan, or a purchase you'll regret once the glow wears off. What helps is not pretending the glitches don't exist, but learning to pause and tilt the balance just a bit. Start with small hesitations. When a decision lands with a snap, give it a breath and check the basics. Ask yourself what would have to be true for this to be a great call, and what would have to be true to make it a lousy one. Create a simple rule for yourself, like waiting a day before buying something you didn't plan to buy, or setting a strict limit on the number of impulse purchases you allow in a week. Keep a tiny checklist. Have I considered the real need, the opportunity cost, and an independent opinion? Bring in a friend to play devil's advocate or to challenge the most confident claim you're ready to commit to. Look for disconfirming evidence and test the anchor instead of letting it anchor you. If the headline feels irrefutable, flip the script and ask for the boring but essential opposite. These moves aren't festive hacks. They're practical calibrations for a brain built to prefer speed over depth. It's normal that the shortcut system wins now and then. The goal isn't to destroy quick intuition, but to tether it with a slow check habit so your smarter self isn't outpaced by a flashy cue. With a little routine, you can keep the glow of confidence without letting it mask a messy truth. You'll still think fast when you should, just not at the cost of expensive mistakes. Trap 1. The I knew it trap, confirmation bias. Wearing rose-colored glasses that only show you what you already believe. Confirmation bias is the tendency to favor information that confirms preconceptions. It wears rose-colored glasses that only show what you already believe. You scan for signals that fit your view, you discount the rest, and you remember the hits more than the misses. That dynamic is what people call the I knew it trap, a mental shortcut that keeps you comfy with easy conclusions while nudging you toward expensive mistakes. Your brain likes tidy stories and quick wins, even when the story is a little off. When you shop, this bias shows up as a love affair with the latest gadget or trend that everyone seems to rave about. You fixate on a shiny feature, ignore red flags about reliability, and let a handful of glowing reviews override a long list of practical questions. A friend's hype, an ad's promise, a social media post that mirrors your hopes, these become your evidence. You remember the one positive outcome you read about and forget the dozen examples where the product gathered dust. The result is clutter and cluttered thinking. You end up with stuff you don't need and a nagging suspicion that you overpaid anyway. In the workplace and in the wider information soup, the "I knew it" trap nudges you towards staying in a bad fit or swallowing questionable claims. You notice the stories that confirm your role in the company or your stance on an issue and downplay evidence to the contrary. You share headlines that feel emotionally right, not necessarily truth-smart, and you gloss over inconvenient data like conflicting reports or failed predictions. The effect is subtle but costly. You anchor to a favorable narrative, ignore warning signs, and miss chances to adjust course before damage stacks up. It's not just about being wrong, it's about being convinced you were right just enough to miss reality. So how do you keep the color from tinting every glimpse you take? Start by naming the belief you're defending and then force a counter-hypothesis. Ask yourself what would have to be true for the opposite to be plausible, and go find a credible source that challenges your view. Build a small ritual around decisions, a waiting period, a simple decision diary where you jot why you're convinced and what would change your mind, and a check-in with someone who doesn't share your viewpoint. Seek disconfirming evidence, not just more evidence that fits. Use devil's advocacy, premortems, and base rate thinking to test whether the shiny thing really solves a problem or just flatters your biases. Remember that invisible anchors, your core beliefs, will tug you toward familiar interpretations unless you actively loosen them. The goal isn't to erase conviction, just to keep the glasses clean enough to notice when the view isn't telling the whole truth. Trap 2. The too deep trap, sunk cost fallacy. Eating burnt food just because you paid for it. Why it's hard to quit bad projects. The sunk cost fallacy is a stubborn headwind that makes past money and time feel like a compass for future moves. Past investments loom large, nudging decisions toward the path already taken. It's a mental glitch that treats what's already spent as if it still has momentum to spare. Burnt food becomes proof you must finish the plate because you paid for it, even when enjoyment has burned away. The mind clings to the receipt of yesterday like a lifebuoy, even as the current carries you off course. In short, money spent is not a map for what to do next, it's just a reminder of what's behind you. When a project goes sour, the same force takes the wheel. Escalation of commitment turns saying we are in too deep to quit into a rule of thumb. Time and energy accumulate, and suddenly quitting feels like admitting you wasted both. The story you tell yourself shifts from "we can fix this" to "if we stop now, everything we invested dissolves into nothing." People defend bad bets with hopeful narratives about potential gains, even as data piles up showing diminishing returns. It's less about rational strategy and more about avoiding the humiliation of acknowledging a waste. That tug shows up in everyday life too. A car that won't stop squeaking, a gadget you never use, a course you paid for but barely attend. A lot of this rides on how the brain values loss versus future possibility. The price you already paid doesn't vanish when you change direction, and that residue feels like a debt you owe to yourself. The pain of losing something tangible outweighs the uncertain benefit of a better plan, so we lean into stubborn continuity. Invisible anchors pull us back. Our pride, the fear of being seen as wasteful, the social story we tell about sticking things out. And yes, fake news can ride the same rails. Investing belief because we already spent time reading or sharing, and the thought of admitting a misstep feels heavier than sticking to the crowd. Here's how to counter the trap without turning decision-making into gymnastic acrobatics. Treat sunk costs as water under the bridge, irrelevant to what you choose next. Set pre-commitment rules that trigger a pause when signals flip from keep going to time to reevaluate, and honor them even if it hurts to do so. Time box your commitments and focus on future costs and benefits rather than what you've already spent. If the plate is burnt, acknowledge it and move on rather than force a rescue mission. The burnt toast is information, not a verdict on you. Build a simple decision log. When you decide to cut losses, note why, so you can repeat the pattern next time without drama. Small habits, clear criteria, and a willingness to redefine value in the moment can make your future choices smarter and a little kinder to your curiosity. Trap 3. The first price anchor. Why the first number you hear gets stuck in your head and controls your wallet. The first price you hear acts as an invisible anchor that sinks into your brain and tilts the perception of value before you even know it. It sticks. Your mind uses that starting point to judge every follow-up price, even if the number is arbitrary or inflated by marketing theatrics. That isn't fair to you, but it happens. In everyday shopping, a gadget pitched at $199 will often feel more premium than the same gadget labeled at $99 later in the same aisle, simply because that first figure rewired your sense of what normal looks like. The first price becomes a yardstick. And when you think in yardsticks, the mind glides toward the impression of savings or the lure of a deal, even if your real goal is to buy what you actually need. The mechanism is simple and stubborn. Anchor this first number in your memory, and any subsequent price seems high or low relative to it, not to the item's true value. Like colored glasses. Your brain then engages in an arm wrestle called the anchoring and adjusting heuristic, where you nudge your estimate toward the anchor and then stop, often too soon. That wobble is enough to mislead you. Consider how this plays out when you're trying to decide whether to buy things you don't need. You spot a chair on sale for $150, not because you need a chair, but because the anchor price you recall for similar chairs is $260. You feel a bargain. The effect leaks into life beyond shopping. It even colors job choices. A salary offer teased with a high opening figure can lift your sense of what fair pay should be, nudging you to accept or settle for less later. That first number travels with you. In media and news, the first figure in a story, headline or poll, acts as an anchor that prunes your expectations about risk and cost, even when the rest of the data contradicts or refines it. People notice the anchor more than the nuance. The practical upshot: you end up in bad jobs that pay less than your value, or you buy products you don't need because the first price told your brain what normal costs. So how do you beat the trap without turning every decision into a moral duel? Start with your own flaw. Before you shop, set a target price and write it down. Then search 2 or 3 sources to see the range, ignoring the first price you encounter. Delay helps. Use objective criteria: total cost of ownership, reviews, and whether you actually need the item, not just whether it seems discounted. Tough but doable. Build a pre-commitment. Commit to leaving the moment you hit your price ceiling, and walk away when the anchor can't puff itself into a legitimate value, even if the sales pitch begs you to stay. Your wallet will thank you. Trap 4. The survivor mistake. Copying successful people without looking at the failures, looking at bullet holes on returning planes. Survivorship bias nudges us toward copying what survived a process and brushing aside the wreckage that didn't make it. We latch onto brilliant exits and viral triumphs, and we treat them as blueprints for our own lives. The problem is that the stories we hear are filtered through the success lens, not a full ledger of what actually happened. The bullet holes on returning plane story is a crisp reminder. If you only study the planes that came back, you miss the ones that didn't, and you mistake luck for design. In markets and startups, this bias shows up as chasing the winner's playbook. A fund posts stellar returns, a company racks up one knockout quarter, and suddenly everyone copies the exact move, the exact product, the exact launch cadence. But these success tales sit on a mountain of failures that aren't as loud or as marketable. The survivor view ignores the churn, the capital burn, the bad hires, the misread timing, and the rare luck that helped the winner shine. It makes risk look controllable when it's often a mix of skill, timing, and a lot of things that went right for a while. The effect bleeds into daily choices, too. People imitate a famous entrepreneur's morning routine or a flashy lifestyle, and assume those habits will unlock the same results for them. They buy gadgets paraded as life changers because a celebrity swore by them, forgetting how those items fit into someone else's budget, needs, and life stage. They accept fake confidence from testimonials that gloss over the plenty of misses behind each success story. In the end, the world looks simpler than it is, and we pay for that simplification with either wasted money, misaligned careers, or stubbornly repeatable mistakes. To counter this trap, swap the focus from winners to a fuller picture. Seek failure stories with the same curiosity you give to success stories. Look for near misses, pivots that didn't work, and the contexts that mattered when things went wrong. Build decision processes that test ideas on a small scale before committing big resources, and monitor outcomes closely so you can spot when luck is doing the heavy lifting. Ask what would have to be true for this plan to fail, not just why it might succeed. Keep a living log of decisions, the reasons behind them, and the actual results, including what was learned from the losers. And when you see a glossy success, pause to imagine the invisible anchors that helped to happen, the network, the timing, the constraints, and how they might be absent in your own situation. That mix of caution and curiosity is how you use the lessons from the bullet hole story without letting it become a blueprint for overconfident moves. The solution: the pause button. How slowing down your thinking can stop these automatic errors. Your brain loves speed, and quick judgments arrive as if on autopilot. We are wired to trust first impressions, not to audition every possibility. That's where the idea of a pause button comes in, an honest, stubborn brake you can press before your mind hands you a final answer. Slowing down doesn't mean you're indecisive. It means you're choosing clarity over momentum. Think of it as lifting a colored glasses filter that usually nudges you toward the easy conclusion, then peeking through a cleaner lens for a moment. The result can be surprising. The same situation may look different when you pause. The simplest tools are practical and portable. A short timeout, even 60 seconds, can sift through the impulse to act on a tempting headline, a flashy ad, or a sudden urge to buy. A longer cooling-off period, like the 24-hour rule, helps with bigger calls such as a major purchase or a job shift. A quick checklist triggers a mental nudge. What's the real goal here? What am I risking if I choose poorly? What would I tell a friend who asked for my advice? These pauses act like invisible anchors, slowing the tide of automatic responses and giving room for a more deliberate look at the stakes. You aren't denying your goals. You're ensuring your goals aren't wearing blinders. Pause has a practical knack for everyday traps. When you scroll past a product with a slick video and a countdown timer, you can press pause rather than push add to cart. When you read a sensational headline, you can pause and verify the source, check a couple of independent reports, and ask yourself which biases might be coloring the story. If a promotion about limited time feels urgent, a moment's pause reveals whether the urgency is real or a clever nudge to speed your thinking. The trick works because it interrupts the mental shortcuts, the comfort of confirmation, the ease of scarcity cues, the pull of sunk costs, and gives you space to recalibrate with facts, values, and longer-term needs. In practice, you can build a tiny decision routine that travels with you. Create a simple ritual. Before you commit, jot down the potential regret scenarios. Run a devil's advocate check by asking what would convince you to walk away. Design your environment to make pause easier. An online shopping habit that requires a 10-minute wait before checkout, a calendar block for decision reviews, a friend who gets a say when your impulse is loud. These tweaks don't erase bias, but they tamp it down enough to let more accurate signals through. You'll notice your brain's tricks, how it leans on vivid images, how it overweights recent events, how it glosses over opportunity costs, without feeling like you're fighting a battle you can't win. You're simply choosing a slower, smarter tempo in a world that rewards rapid conclusions. Your brain is a tool, not a master. Learn its bugs to use it better. Your brain is a tool designed for efficiency, not perfection. It runs on shortcuts and quick judgments that save energy, not a flawless calculator. Those shortcuts are biases, built-in blind spots that color our decisions in real time. They pop up as fast hunches we mistake for solid facts. Take the availability bias. Dramatic stories flood our memory, so we assume such events are more common than they actually are. That trick helps us decide quickly, but it also nudges us toward buying things we don't need and feeling alarm about risks that aren't likely. Colored glasses are how these bugs tilt our view. Confirmation bias makes you notice evidence that fits your current view and skim past what contradicts you. Sunk cost keeps you in a bad job or a bad plan because you've already invested something, even when the math says move on. Anchoring pulls your sense of value toward the first price you hear. If a gadget is pitched at $1,000 and later marked down, it suddenly feels like a steal, even if you never really wanted it. Loss aversion makes losses sting more than gains feel good, so you cling to the familiar to avoid the pain of change. The endowment effect makes you value what you own more than what you don't own, which makes selling or letting go feel unfairly costly. Put together, these glitches steer you toward impulsive buys, risky bets, and stubborn stalls in work you dislike. But you can treat your brain as a partner rather than a dictator. Start by naming the biases at play before you decide. Slow thinking matters. Pause, breathe, and run a quick check on whether your impulse is weather or wind. Try a simple rule: sleep on big choices, especially purchases or job moves. A decision journal helps too. Write the decision goal, the top alternatives, the main trade-offs, and what would prove you wrong in the next step. If then plans work well, if I see a bargain, I pause for a day and ask myself what I'm really solving for. A pre-mortem can be surprisingly clarifying. Imagine the decision turned bad and list the warning signs. Round out the toolkit with practical checks for everyday life. Before a big purchase, set objective criteria: how much use you'll get, how much it will cost over time, and whether you'd buy it at full price tomorrow. Track the promise you're making to yourself versus the emotion you feel right now. Share your plan with a trusted friend to add accountability without shaming. When you read or hear news, demand at least 2 independent sources and a clear statement of what would change your mind. Look for repeated patterns, not single dramatic stories, and beware echo chambers that only confirm what you want to hear. Recognize the invisible anchors that pull you toward a familiar choice and deliberately steer toward what your future self will thank you for. Your brain isn't the enemy. It's a sophisticated tool with quirks. Learn its bugs, and you gain leverage over them. With calm checks, practical rules, and a few honest habits, you trade knee-jerk certainty for grounded judgment. You become someone who can spot the glitches and still make bold, decent bets on the things that matter. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware enough to use the tool well, even when it isn't built to be flawless. Here's the gist from our coffee chat. Even the sharpest minds trip over the same mental glitches. Colored glasses that tint what we notice, invisible anchors that pull our judgments toward yesterday, and the sneaky way a single number or story can steer the whole decision. We walk through the usual suspects: confirmation bias, the sunk cost trap, the availability heuristic, anchoring, loss aversion, framing, and a pinch of overconfidence. In plain terms, we end up believing what fits our story, sticking with what we've already invested, trusting the loudest tale over the shy data, and letting tiny details push big choices. Take it home with some real-life scenes. We buy stuff we don't need because a flashy ad promises a brighter future. We stay in a bad job because we've already spent months or years there. We swallow fake news because a snappy headline travels faster than a careful statistic. If you're watching, chances are you spot at least one of these in your own decisions, not as a failing, but as a common drumbeat our brains play. If this clicked, hit like, subscribe, and drop a bias you've caught yourself in this week in the comments. I'm curious to hear which mental glitch keeps popping up for you and how you handle it. And stick around, because the next videos will turn these ideas into quick, playable experiments you can do with friends or at work. We'll unpack simple debiasing tricks, pause and reframe, check assumptions, test the opposite, keep a tiny decision journal that actually fit into real life, not just a lecture hall. Until then, keep a curious eye on your own brain. Smart, capable, a little glitchy at times, and totally trainable.